Well, with a big loss to the Oilers last night, the Blues have failed yet again to win that elusive 3 games in a row. And time is starting to run out for these St. Louis Blues to have a big turnaround like they did last year. So, elsewhere around the league, after a couple of big trades featuring right-handed defenseman Rasmus Andersson and forward Kiefer Sherwood, the trade market has started to heat up. So, how is the landscape looking for the Blues right now? What could the return be for Justin Faulk, who, after the Anderson trade, is now one of the top right shot defensemen left on the market? What about some other Blues players like Brayden Schenn? What teams might be interested, and what should the Blues seek as a return? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. It's John and Alec back with you as always. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast doing episodes twice a week. If you haven't already, the best way to follow us and support us is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Truly the best way to help us out. Like this video. If you're on audio on Spotify or Apple, give us a follow and a rating or a review, and then follow us on socials as well if that's your thing. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. As I mentioned, the Blues have, they lost to the Oilers last night. That was a bit of a demoralizing loss, but there were some bigger wins in there before. They finally won. I guess in the shootout this time, they still haven't won. I guess technically in 3-on-3 in overtime, but they did get technically an overtime win over Tampa Bay, ending their 11-game win streak, and then they played a fantastic game against the Carolina Hurricanes, beat them, shut them out. That one was 3-0, I believe. Joel Hofer pitched an excellent game. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating. So, Alec, just in general, how are you feeling as a Blues fan right now? We can sort of get into the meat of the episode here in a sec, but yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, it's been, I think, more status quo. You might win a couple, you'll definitely lose some, and the ones that you lose will stick out a lot more in your memory, as it seems to be going now. But it's still fun hockey, and it's still fun to watch them, especially thinking now, like getting excited for the Olympics, leading up to the Olympics and everything. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Uh, and that's taking up a lot of my brain space right now. But otherwise, I would say, yeah, Bluesland is more of the same. If you've kind of checked out and haven't tuned back into the games in a while, it's been a continuation of some good and a lot of just deflating.
Yeah, a lot of deflating, demoralizing losses at times. So yeah, super frustrating. But speaking of the Olympics, if you haven't checked out our previous episode, definitely go check that one out. We broke down all of the 5 Blues players that have been selected to their nation's rosters in the upcoming Winter Olympics. I'm also super excited for that. It'll be a great chance to see, some of the players we know and love playing games that matter, which is sort of a depressing state to be in the middle of January if you're a hockey fan. But still, super exciting tournament coming up. So go check that one out. We broke that one down. That was a lot of fun. We're really excited for the Olympics here on Note News, and we hope everyone else is too. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into it, Alec. Get to the main segment of the day. We're going to cover some of the other sort of the grab bag of headlines around the Blues later on, like Steve Ott and Dylan Holloway's back from injury, that kind of stuff. But let's start with the main topic for today, which is just how the trade market is shaping up for the Blues, who are probably going to be, if trends continue as they currently are, they will probably be selling at the upcoming trade deadline. It's not looking great for them. They are towards the bottom in points percentage, as well as goal differential. I don't think they're the worst anymore. I think Vancouver passed them, so they're finally not the worst. But points wise, you could maybe like look at the standings and squint and say, okay, maybe if they go on a run. But you just sort of look at a lot of other other factors and other statistics, and it's just not looking good. So that being said, I think we'll approach this episode today as if the Blues are going to be selling and they're going to sort of continue at their current pace. Um, but I think we should be clear. We might like mention or discuss a couple of big ticket items like Robert Thomas or Jordan Kyrou. But I think the meat of today's episode are is going to be with regards to players like Justin Faulk and Brayden Schenn, who are far more likely to be traded. There have been lots of rumors and comments out there from Doug Armstrong that he, is pretty much listening on anybody. That doesn't mean that they are shopping everybody, right? There's a difference there. But for now, there's not a lot of smoke around Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas, other than like uh, fan rumors and reports saying this would be great if we got one of these guys. So at least for now, we're going to sort of stay away from a full-on discussion of those guys and stick again to the more realistic ones. And I want to start with Justin Faulk because this is really where some external factors might sort of heat up the market. And the biggest one here being Rasmus Andersson, who, for those who don't know yet, has been traded from the Calgary Flames to the Vegas Golden Knights. He was probably the top defenseman on the market, at least the top right shot defenseman on the market this season. So the Golden Knights acquired him from the Calgary Flames in exchange for Zach Whitecloud, a 2027 first round pick, a conditional 2028 second round pick, and I believe a prospect was tacked onto that. So pretty big haul for Calgary. Were you surprised by the return they got for Rasmus Andersson, who, granted is a pretty good player, right? He's been pretty solid for a while now, but still, I was a little bit surprised. Like he's a rental; he'll be a UFA this summer. I wouldn't be surprised if Vegas signed him, and extended him, of course. But still, a pretty big return for Rasmus Andersson, who doesn't have a lot of term left.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely surprised by the return. I think with Anderson, it makes sense for the team and the player fit. Vegas is a team that likes to take established, good veteran players, and that's exactly what Rasmus Anderson is. So from that sense, maybe you could have always seen it coming, and maybe Vegas was always going to overpay a little bit for it. Um, but I think that the return is really interesting here, and I think a crucial part of it is definitely the 50% retained that Calgary is retaining on his salary. I don't think they would have gotten anywhere close to this if there was no salary retention as part of the deal.
Right.
Um, and also, I think a little bit is part of this is the Vegas factor of they have just a unique mentality as a front office and as a team when it comes to what to do with assets. No one really does it like the Vegas Golden Knights. So I think it's kind of a mixture of that. So I would be pretty surprised if, like, for example, Justin Falk were able to return something comparable to that.
Yeah, I mean, anything close, I think I'd be pretty happy with. And so there have been a couple rumors out there, a couple reports out there, and we'll sort of break it down today. But some of the remaining right shot defensemen on the market, Alec, are Luke Shen with the Winnipeg Jets, who are sort of still struggling quite a bit. We've also got, Dougie Hamilton is sort of a recent addition to the trade boards after being a healthy scratch with New Jersey. He's sort of maybe the biggest name on the trade board in this right shot defenseman category. Sort of scrolling through. You also got Connor Murphy from the Blackhawks. And Justin Faulk, of course, who is having a little bit of a resurgence this year. Certainly one of the offensive leaders for the Blues this year. He's having a fantastic year, kind of out of nowhere, but the timing couldn't be better for that to happen with Well, I mean, I guess it could be better if the Blues were playing better, but in a season where they are not playing so well, to have Justin Faulk, sort of scoring 11 goals, 11 assists, to be one of the offensive leaders for a struggling team, and to sort of have a need probably to move on from this contract, it's a pretty good situation. So, of the names I mentioned, Dougie Hamilton, Luke Schenn, Connor Murphy, how do you think Justin Faulk stacks up with those guys in terms of for the teams that missed out on a guy like Rasmus Andersson? Who do they pivot to next, right? So like, does Justin Falk top the list for you, or do you think he's sort of two or three? There are some boards out there that have him as the last of those four. What are your thoughts on where Falk stacks up in sort of the pecking order here?
So I really think it is personal preference or like team preference as to what your own individual answer to this would be. And so this is just going to be my personal preference, but I actually would, if I were in a vacuum, a neutral team, looking at these four players, I would have Falk as my one. In terms of what I would want to trade for, I think contract value is something to be considered here, and it's just so cathartic to me to be having now to like step back in as the Blues fan for a second to be able to take this position after all the like discussions of Justin Falk's contract over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the contract value for Falk is actually relatively pretty good, especially when you compare with a guy like Dougie Hamilton is coming in at $9 million. That's like 1.5 times what Falk is worth. And Falk is only a year and a half of control, right? So it's this season and another year, if I'm not mistaken,
For who?
for Justin Falk.
Uh, is it? I thought it was. Hold on, let me pull it up. I think that sounds right. Let me just confirm.
Yes.
Justin
Yeah.
Falk, yeah, has
It's
this season and
this
another year will be a
season and another year.
UFA in
Yep.
2028. Yeah.
Um, to where it's almost like trading for Cam Fowler last year. To except probably in that situation, if I'm a neutral GM making this pitch, I don't know that the extension would be part of my grand plan,
Yeah.
um, but you get another chance at a year of good Justin Falk, and good Justin Falk is a really good asset for a team to have. Even if he goes back to being sort of not so good Justin Falk, that's still only a year of control to really worry about it at not that much of a cap hit, relatively speaking. And there's always the chance in a playoff run that that kind of a thing can turn on. So it can actually be a good long term playoff move for the next 2 years. Um, so, in my opinion, Justin Falk is actually my number one.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. I mean, I'm looking at the other ones I mentioned. First of all, Luke Shen, I don't think Justin Falk is like an excellent player, but I don't think he's particularly close to I don't think that Luke Shen is particularly close to what Justin Falk is, especially this year. I mean, Falk has kind of lit it up offensively. Luke Shen is a lot older. He's 36. Um, I expect him to be moved, but again, I don't think he is the top guy. With Connor Murphy, I mean, it's a similar situation. I guess he's like a little bit of a stronger defender. His cap hit is a little lower, so I could see some teams turning to a guy like him, but I think like the real contenders would be more drawn to a guy like Falk. And then with Dougie Hamilton, he probably has a much higher offensive upside than Justin Falk does for sure. But his cap hit is $9 million for another 2.5 years, and so he could be an attractive player, but making that work for some of these cap strapped teams like a Boston or a Florida, who only have about $1 million in cap space to spare, I don't see them going to that next after Andersson has come off the board. So I think I agree. Just in terms of how the contract itself compares to his peers on the trade market, and also in terms of his performance this year, I think he probably would be, if not the first guy up, like a close second. Um, and I think it probably is, as you said, case by case, team by team, person by person. But I think that's well put. So, um, speaking of Justin Faulk's contract, his cap hit is 6.5 million, so it's not nothing. Um, but the Blues probably could eat some of that, and as you pointed out, it's only another year and a half. Um, he does still have some trade protection. His trade clause, full no trade, went from it went from a full no trade to a 15 team no trade list. So he has some teams that he can refuse a trade to if he chooses to. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were some on there that he might be more willing to he might be willing to reconsider. Um, you know, wanting to just be in a better situation. Like I don't know, the team I think about when I say that is like a San Jose, right? If you're at the beginning of the year and you're a guy like Justin Falk who probably wants to have the best chance you can to compete in the playoffs, San Jose would probably be one of those teams that you would say no trade, just because of where they were looking like they were at the beginning of the season in their competitive cycle. But with Macklin Celebrini and sort of the things they're doing, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some teams, or I guess some players out there rather, that looked like a much more attractive destination. So, he can still waive that if he chooses. So I think the contract should be a fairly easy thing to work around. And, just given his performance this year, I think there could be a lot of people lining up, a lot of teams lining up for Falk.
Justin Faulk, you are a Buffalo Sabre.
I mean, they look good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the Buffalo Sabres do look good. It's kind of crazy.
This is like the purgatory NHL season.
Yeah, yeah. It's San Jose has come out of nowhere. Although you also have like the Senators who like you look at advanced analytics and it's like they are elite, and then they're
Hmm.
like the worst goaltending in the league. Um, yeah, Buffalo, Islanders, Pittsburgh. Um,
So weird.
it's weird.
Unksburg.
Like they're all in playoff spots. It's weird. But on the point of Justin Falk, I think we should talk about first some of the teams that might be interested in him, and then what the return for him could look like. How similar is it to what Vegas or what Calgary got for Rasmus Andersson? Um, and a couple of the packages and the suitors that I have seen out there are. So I'll start with a team like the Florida Panthers, who um, want to win their third in a row. They have had some injury troubles, obviously, among their forward core with some of their best players, but have had some defensemen go down as well. I mean, I think Seth Jones is still out with injury, who's playing second pair minutes for them. I'm sure they're going to want an upgrade on their bottom four on their blue line. So I think Florida could really be interested in this. Um, and the return I saw for Justin Falk from Florida was a 2026 second round pick. They have two to choose from. So that was part of it. Probably some prospect. I would hope a defenseman. One of the names I saw out there has been Lukashevich, a college player for Florida that's in their system. I'd be pretty interested in that. And then just to make it work cap wise, have Evan Rodriguez come back the other way. They might not want to part with him, but you probably would be looking to, similar to how Vegas offloaded Zach Whitecloud, right, in the $2 to $3 million range, just cap wise to make space. There's probably going to have to be some contract like that coming back the other way. So, thoughts on that return um, for Justin Faulk, and do you see the Panthers as a likely suitor for his services?
So on that specific package, I think that would be really interesting, for sure. I think it addresses a number of things, getting a player and a prospect and a pick. Um, it wouldn't be my favorite package in the world, but it would definitely be one that I could live with.
Yeah,
Um, and I do think Florida makes sense as a fit. Florida just is always a team looking to upgrade, um, and really establishing themselves as one of the most special dynasties maybe hockey has ever seen. Um, and uh, it would make sense, to just get the best rentals every year and push this thing out as far as they can for sure. Um, and I think that uh, for me, really what I'm focusing on in a Justin Falk deal is the return. For the return, um I'm taking picks over prospects and players
hmm.
first and foremost, and then I'm taking like youth over everything else, secondarily. Um
That's
and this kind of just goes into like my again, this is just like how I view drafting philosophies and such, which I talked about in a previous episode. But it to me, it's about extending the window of this team and understanding that the window is not right now. So we need players who are going to help out in the near term, or in like not like I'm not saying like 16-year-old youths, but like in the 2 to 3 year window.
mhm.
Um, and so for me, it's prioritizing that window of time, is when a Justin Falk piece should return. If the return is, for example, like a 1-for-1 player swap, that might be something I'm much less interested in than like a second round pick, would be fantastic.
It's interesting. I would probably lean the other way, and prioritize prospects over picks. But it's interesting because I say that for the same reason, as you said, picks over prospects. Um, I think that prospects just being a little bit more of a known quantity, there's value there, and there's less development time, and so I don't think they should be looking to find someone who can help them. I don't think they should be prioritizing players because they can be a difference maker in 2026, 27. I don't think that's the route they should be going. But like, if they load up on picks, then you know they're sort of punting on the primes of Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, maybe even Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway. Like, I think that could, I don't know, take up a significant chunk of the time that they have left of those contracts. So I don't think they should be looking to like retool on the fly really quick and then try to compete again next year. But I don't think they should really draw it out a super long time. But I think it sounds like we're in agreement about the window at least that should be prioritized. But yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
and I see your point on like, um, Jordan Kyer and Robert Thomas's kind of like awkward middle timeline through all of this.
Hmm.
And I think like the idea is that whatever is coming to help this roster has to be almost ready to go now, because anything like, and usually teams aren't willing to part with prospects who are knocking on the doors. Like they're
Right.
factoring into they're factoring those players into their near term future. Um,
Yeah.
and so I guess that's why I say like in a trade package, I would prioritize. Usually prospects are more like, well, they can do this one tool really well. Um, so I guess I think that the next wave of what's coming for the Blues like is already like here. It's Otto
Hmm.
Stenberg, it's what Pekarchik will be. It's if you think a dart throw like a Kaskamaki or something can work out, whatever it is, like those are the reinforcements for this wave of Blues hockey slash whatever you can get in return for them is the other way you can go about roster building. um and then I'm thinking about the next wave behind that, I guess, is it's like it's time to start replenishing that pool.
Okay, that makes sense. I just, yeah, that makes sense. I understand where you're coming from. So another package that's somewhat similar that I saw, just to sort of get back to Justin Faulk specifically, and some of the teams that might be interested in him. The Detroit Red Wings are one that I thought was pretty interesting. They missed out on the Quinn Hughes sweepstakes. They were one of the teams that was in there, um, and could probably use some help on the defensive end. And I think Justin Falk sort of fits that mold. And so one of the packages I saw out there was a conditional 2026 second rounder, an unconditional 2028 fourth rounder. So you sort of pick up some of those picks, but then tack on prospect Max Plant. Um, and I thought that was really interesting because Max Plant was a second round pick in 2024. He's sort of an excellent. He's sort of like a playmaking center type, and he's playing in the NCAA right now in 24 games with the University of Minnesota. He has 20 goals and 18 assists. So like, I'm not saying that I think this specific player is who the Blues could get back in return, but like that kind of type, like that kind of caliber of player whose stock is really rising a lot recently, I think that could be really interesting. Um, a guy like that. So thoughts on a return like that, where you're sort of prioritizing the youth more than that Florida package where you would have Evan Rodriguez coming back. Thoughts on like a couple of picks and a maybe a boomer bust type prospect, but someone who could have a decently high ceiling. Thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, I think if you can get your hands on something like that, then that's absolutely a package to go after. I mean, look at what the Blues were able to do with a sort of reclamation or boomer busts type acquisition in Jonathan Berggren. Um, so I think that there's a connection there into that. Maybe this is how the Blues like to do business.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that there's absolutely, reason to um, think that something like that could be a pretty good idea. Um, I guess, uh, yeah. I mean, I guess I just think that the prospect is the really like crucial, key log to all of this discussion. Is like who the prospect is,
Hmm.
uh, and or how high the pick is, because once it falls out of a certain range, like after like mid second round, it's kind of all superfluous for the most part.
Hmm.
Not saying a seventh round and a back into the second round pick are the same at all, but um you get what I'm. It's a
Mhm.
more fluid. So
And harder
the
to
prospect,
predict. Yeah.
yeah, the prospect really matters in in this type of package. Is all I would say.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think this type of package would be best case scenario for me. Um, you're just sort of recouping some of that draft capital, but not going all in on it, and you acquire a prospect who can sort of bolster your system. So I think that would be awesome to see something of this type. Um, and it's a little bit similar to the Rasmus Andersson return, although the draft picks weren't quite as good. Just like a couple of picks, a prospect, and maybe to make it work out cap wise, there's another player coming back the other way, or the Blues are retaining some salary or something like that. But I wouldn't hate that at all. Um, a couple other teams that I just sort of am curious about from the standpoint of who might be interested in Justin Faulk. I'm looking at like Boston, who was reportedly in on Andersson, and they probably wanted an extension, and he wasn't willing to sign there. I wonder if they'd be interested in Justin Faulk. Maybe not, just because he doesn't have the upside that an Andersson does. Um, Maybe a Carolina, who they have lots of cap space and wouldn't have to make it work.
Hulk back to Carolina.
Like that could be interesting. They sort of know him over there. Detroit for like while we're on this point, they also have a lot of cap space. So for them, like I don't think they'd be sending back anyone to sort of make it work that way. But I'm also looking at some of the teams that have found themselves in it and are younger and could maybe use someone like this, like an Anaheim or San Jose. So some interesting stuff there. But yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know what the return might be for those from those teams, but I wonder. Makes you wonder.
Definitely a high name on the market right now.
Yeah, I really hope that the Blues. I mean, I don't know. It's an obvious thing to say. This is the right time to move Justin Falk. I really hope that they take advantage of how the market is developing. There's a lot of teams that might be interested in buying, just given the parity in the league this season. There's a lot of teams that maybe have missed out on Andersson and want to get in on it. And then on top of that, Justin Falk is playing one of his best seasons in a few years. So I'm hoping they see the stars aligning like I am in the St. Louis front office. Um, okay, anything else on Justin Falk before we pivot to one or two more names?
I don't think so.
All right, so what about Brayden Schenn? Like, what do you think about the idea of Brayden Schenn being traded? Robert Thomas is out with injury. This is something that we have not talked about. So the Blues are a little strapped for centers as it is right now. But Brayden Schenn has 2.5 years left on his current deal at a cap hit of 6.5. And then just in terms of trade protection as well, he's another one that has a little bit of power to determine his destination. He also has a 15-team no trade, like Justin Falk does. Or yeah, he does for the next 3 seasons, or I guess 2 seasons after this one. So a little bit of trade protection for a center that can play tough minutes like he can. I think there could be some demand out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, just thoughts on the idea in general of trading a guy like Brayden Schenn right now.
Yeah, Shen is a tough one because I still see a lot of the minute in, minute out of Shen that leaves, a lot to be desired. That his just it's hard for him to keep up. it looks like a lot of the time. But at the same token, like I totally understand the intangibles and the reasons why someone would want him. But I more fall into the camp of like, I don't know if this is harsh to say, but like whatever you can get, like whatever people are willing to offer, if that's the decision they want to go. Um, I think the more interesting discussion is like if you would trade Brayden Schenn, and to that, I don't really know. Like I don't even know what my answer is. I think most it seems like most fans' answers would be yes. And I definitely understand from it, but like I don't know, moving on from a captain in season feels like it's just it's a tough one for me. I guess it's a dilemma. Um, but
Yeah, it is a dilemma, but like
yeah,
they almost went there last year, you know, and sort of decided not to make anything happen, decided to stand pat at the deadline. You know, like there was by all indications there was a fair amount of interest in Brayden Schenn last year, and I don't, you know, it might not be quite as much given he's having a down year, but like there has to be an understanding that just like around the league that everyone in St. Louis is kind of having a down year right now, and so I feel like some of the production to this point might need to be taken with a grain of salt, but like given the you know one fewer year on his contract, like that could maybe even like increase some interest in a guy like Shen. So it is like a little bit of a difficult situation to sort of face the idea of trading your captain in season, like you said. But I don't know, like I think they kind of have to move on from him at some point. And if you can sort of capitalize on a little bit of the desperation that some teams might have to make a playoff berth happen, like why not? You know?
I totally get it. I still struggle with the decision myself, but I totally get it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a hard one. He's loved for a reason. But just in terms of a return for Brayden Schenn, like this one's a little bit tough to predict. Like I tried to comb back through some of the similar trades that have happened um, in the past couple of years. You know, there were a couple last year right before the trade deadline. I'm looking at like similar producing in terms of like a similar producing center. Um, it's not a one to one comparison, but uh, I'm looking at Charlie Coyle, who's 33. You know, he's close in age to Brayden Schenn. In terms of production, he's like kind of similar. Like he's been in the 30 to 60 range in the past, like, or I guess yeah, like 30 to 60 range. He's been in the mid 40s a couple times in the past few seasons, and so like I don't know. I think this might be one of the closest trade deadline trades of this type of player that we might be able to find. And so the Avalanche acquired him last year, along with a fifth round pick from the Bruins for Casey Middlestat and William Zellers, and a second round pick last year. So like, I mean, that would be like a little bit of a bigger return. And again, we probably want them to prioritize youth a little bit more than that, like focus on maybe some prospects and picks. Um, but you know, at the same time, you had a guy like Brad Marchand, who was obviously a pending free agent at the time, and isn't as you know as direct of a comparison to Brayden Schenn. He's a much bigger name. But they only had to give up a second round pick in 2027 for Brad Marchand. So I feel like the return for Brayden Schenn could be um, could you know vary wildly in terms of what you get back team by team. Um, Thoughts on those types of returns?
Yeah. Again, it's to me, it's like whatever you can get is kind of a win already.
Yeah.
So I think that there's uh anything, anything that seems like a good package for Shen probably is, but in terms of these deals, I guess like I would say I think the Marshawn one is interesting. When you just look about like I don't know, kind of I mean Marshawn had, yeah, like you said, is a little bit more of an NHL personality, and also played on some better teams in a historic NHL market. So it definitely has a bigger overall like image and brand than Brayden Schenn, but otherwise like play style wise, not too dissimilar. And um, what in terms of like roles they fit on the team itself, I would say pretty similar actually. Um, so I think that the yeah, I do believe that Shen definitely like some younger team, probably like Anaheim or something, is going to talk themselves into the idea of Shen and can make a competitive bid. What I would be looking for is if they can really drive up the market at all. Like if there's going to be another team that sort of comes in and has any interest for Shen that then causes like the first team to make a counter offer, because that would really be how you get these like much more elevated packages that Coyle and Marchand retrieved. um, so if there's a market beyond just a handful of teams, then you're really starting to, grab my attention.
Yeah, I think that would be an ideal scenario. And by the sounds of it, there could be a couple other teams interested in a guy like Shen. I think you make a good point. There could be some of those younger teams that are looking for some experience and some know-how that could be interested. But at the same time, one rumor I've seen has been Brayden Schenn or Brayden Schenn going to Vegas rather. Um, and I feel like when there's rumors around Vegas, they tend to they tend to there tends to be something there. There tends to be some legitimacy to um, those types of rumors. So I wonder about a team like Vegas. I wonder about a team like the Washington Capitals, who are probably going to be back in it. And this is really interesting. I don't know if you saw the report about the package that the Maple Leafs had on the table for Shen last year. Um, it was it obviously didn't go down, but there was some you know well known interest from Toronto for Shen, and the return would have included. I'm trying to find it here. The return would have included Easton Cowan and Ben Danford, so a winger prospect and a defenseman prospect. Like, I don't think, given the play of Brayden Schenn this year, like I don't think it's gonna be quite that much. I don't think it would be quite that much. Like those are a couple of solid prospects, um, but I don't know. Like anything close to that would make me happy if they could rekindle some of that interest. I'd be really interested in that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, I don't think I have a ton to add to that. Just if they could have a competitive market for a guy like Shane, then you could really start. The packages will look very different, but you could really tailor it to what the Blues are asking for, or the Blues could really tailor it to what they're asking for, which
Yeah,
is kind of the ideal scenario, especially for a trade deadline.
yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Any other players in this sort of category that you want to throw out there as potential potential trade chips for the Blues?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, do you want to talk about like PS Suter?
I mean, that was one that I was going to mention just in terms of the term left on that deal, and
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously not working out team wise the way that both sides hoped it would. I think he has lived up to his end of the bargain for sure. Um, you know, maybe they try to flip him. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of like Jordan Bennington is another one out there. Like I don't think it's gonna happen. Like I don't think the time is right given his performance, and I don't think that I don't know. I don't see that one happening. It seems like that one is sort of uh, one that has not really gained much traction by the sound of it, and I don't expect it to. Um, so I don't think that one happens. I don't think a Robert Thomas trade happens. Um, you know, yeah, I think we sort of said we would focus on some of the more realistic ones right now. Um,
Perhaps on a future episode we'll get into the more uh I don't know, big meaning ones.
the big shakeups.
Impactful, yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so a couple of other things that I want to get your thoughts on. So first is the Mayu extension. This is just sort of some housekeeping that we have not gotten the chance to talk about. But Mayu was signed to a contract extension, a 1 year, $850,000 deal, at the end of which he'll be an RFA. He's sort of been a bit of a hot button topic this year, and that's sort of putting it lightly. But yeah, thoughts on this extension? And I mean, like in my mind, it's just why not? 850,000 is not going to hurt you, and you know why not let him develop and see if you can unlock something.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's not much to make of this, honestly. I think Mayu as a player is just there's not much to make of yet. So like you had to like give him a little bit more of a leash to, establish something. Because he's really only playing in his first like NHL action at any sustained amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
How many players like that's all they get is one crack at it, especially for being, somewhat dominant at their lower levels, and then never again see NHL ice time. Like it's not that common.
Yeah,
So I expect Mayu to, get a little bit of a runway on this team, and this is just the next step in doing that. But it's not like it's not, you know, that much, I guess.
yeah. No, I think this was probably the right thing to do. Um, Dylan Holloway's back. That's great. Robert Thomas is out. That's not great. And then Oscar Sundquist was hurt. He had a bit of a scary one. So, um, we're hoping for the best for Sonny, for Thomas as well to return. The other bit of news that I want to get your thoughts on is an announcement that was it this morning? Was it today? Yeah, it was. I guess that maybe this afternoon. That the Blues are sort of switching things up with some of their coaching staff. They
Oh
uh,
yeah.
they fired their AHL coach, and Steve Ott, who has been a long time assistant coach for the Blues, at the NHL level. He's going to take over as head coach for the rest of the season. And Ott has been running the power play. Like that's sort of been what he's been in charge of for a lot of his time. And it hasn't been a great power play, with in all actuality. They're I think their power play percentage is like 16%, and that's towards the bottom of the league. And so I think Montgomery is gonna take over as running the power play there. So yeah, I mean, thoughts on this change. You know, Otter headed down to the AHL.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think it gives, Steve Ott the chance to really earn his stripes as a head coach,
Mm-hmm.
which like you said, he's been in the Blues organization forever. But if you think about it, has never really been a head coach or has never been in any sort of authoritative position. So he
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't have that muscle flexed at all on a day to day or, year to year basis. Um, and so I think that this is a long term move for the Blues. Is that potentially they are raising a future head coach of theirs, um, and or they just wanted to give him the opportunity because they feel that he's earned it, or I mean, I can't imagine there's that many other reasons for it, but maybe it's something else I'm not thinking of. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
obviously they also want to try and improve what's going on down in Springfield. I think team wise, like there have been some good um, you know player by player development scenarios, but like team wide, I think things have been a little disappointing for Springfield, and so this also feels like I agree in terms of like you know the Blues sort of seeing what they've got in a guy like Steve Ott, but I think they're also sort of trying to maybe turn things around and restructure a little bit of what's going on down in Springfield to see if they can make something happen down there, improve things a little bit. Well, the Blues play 3 more games this week. They face the Jets in Winnipeg tomorrow night on January 20th. They'll be off for a couple of days. They'll play in Dallas. They've got a back-to-back this coming weekend in Dallas, and then at home against the Kings. So um, some good opponents in there. A rival team in there in the Winnipeg Jets, who have quickly become one of my least favorite teams in the league. So should be fun. I hope the Blues can at least beat the Jets, but we'll see what happens against the Stars and the Kings. It's been a little while since we came on here and talked about what has been going on the ice for the Blues. So that is maybe one that's coming for us. We've talked about the Broberg extension. We had Mike Meyer on to talk about the prospect system and World Juniors. We talked about Olympics as well. So we've been talking about a lot of other stuff that's been a lot of fun. I think, in my mind, more fun than what the Blues have going on right now. So, anyways, go check those out for sure. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, that's the best way to help us out. Like this video. If you're listening on audio, we're on both Spotify and Apple. Give us a follow, but also leave a rating and a review. That goes a long way and helps get the podcast in front of some new eyes and ears. And then follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod, where we post a lot of other great stuff. So I think that'll do it for us this time. We'll see you next time here on Note News. Thanks for listening and for watching. And let's go Blues.
let's go Blues.